Hello, this is Mike Layton from Stochastic Marketing, and today I'd like to introduce our listeners to a very bright gentleman that I've worked with now since 2014 to help contractors book more appointments from their existing call volume. I just would like to introduce Jeremiah Wilson. He is the owner and founder of Conversa. Say hello, Jeremiah.
Hello, and I'm glad to be on, Mike. I've really appreciated spending time with you and highly value your analytical mind. I think it's been great to watch you use the data so well.
Well, I appreciate that. We first, for our listeners, we first came across each other in 2014 when I was trying to figure out how to use voice recognition technology to monitor calls in the automotive service shops for a chain with a couple thousand locations, if you remember way back then. But I found that you had beaten me to a patent. And I always like working with people who are a little smarter and a little bit ahead of me. And you've been gracious enough to customize some of the things that you do to fit our home service customers. Tell our listeners a little bit about how algorithms can find missed opportunities accurately, quickly, and typically more cost effectively than humans.
Sure. So a computer is able to go and listen to what's happening on a call, and it's able to be programmed to recognize what works and what doesn't work. And I started the business in 2001, specifically as a sales training company, where we would go into an organization, we would manually, with a human being, listen to their call, and then we'd pick out the items that were holding them back from having the most success. And that was great. Loved that business. But over time, that evolved from training to saying, rather than having humans do this, I want to see if a computer can. And it took a long time. It actually took us 5 years to get it to a point where we felt it was going to, work like we wanted it to. Essentially, you go in and you listen to call after call after call, and you create an algorithm, essentially 40,000 hours of work to go in and define every little detail of a conversation that could possibly happen, and then what the outcome is. And I don't want to get into all the minutia of how we go about doing that, but the bottom line is there are key things on a call we're listening for. Let's just pick one, for example. As simple as it is, and everybody knows it's true. You should get somebody's name and you should use it on a phone call. Why? Because of course they like hearing their name, and not only that, it personalizes it. It makes a better relationship. It allows them to open up more. So that, there you go. Can the computer recognize if you ask somebody for their name? And the answer is yes. There's only so many ways you can go about doing that. You can program it into the system, and we can flag on every call whether or not the customer used the name or not. And here's where it gets really interesting. We can then see the end outcome. Did a sale result, or did a scheduled appointment result, or in specific, for example, with HVAC, did I get them booked at the end of that call? And we can also look for that with an algorithm. And if I take those two data points alone, there are many we look for, but let's just say it's that name and was there a positive outcome? And we do that with 1 million calls. 1 million calls go through the system. We can tell you with a high level of accuracy that you are 4 times more likely to get the business if you use their name than if you didn't. And more specifically, you're 4 times more likely to schedule the appointment if you use their name than if you didn't.
And Jeremiah, I just want to jump in on for our users, because it is amazing how much people talk about training CSRs and training techs. And Jeremiah has run 600,000 plus contractor calls through their algorithms and tweak the algorithms to reflect some of the language that's used when booking appointments in the home service industry.
Right.
But, I mean, this is going on for, our study's gone back years. But when we look at that, less than half of the phone calls we've analyzed have HVAC or plumbing CSRs asked for the name.
Yeah.
Less than half. And that's
the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, how you train your children to answer the phone. Right?
Yep.
Layton's residence. You just identify yourself, and then you expect the other person to say, "This is Betty Sue."
Yep.
But what is the most common mistake CSRs make when they're taking calls from consumers? Because you do not just home service, you do tire and automotive in a huge way, plus all these other calls. What's the most common thing you do? See.
Yeah, so there are actually a lot of common things, and I'm more than happy to answer, go through all of them. But I'm going to clarify your question just a little bit. Most common thing that directly relates to losing the business. I'm going to clarify because
yeah, it's better. That's better.
And specifically, what loses you the most money. So it's not just business, but what loses you the most money. And I'm going to say asking for the business, specifically asking for an appointment, bar none. They have got to close the business on that phone call the first time. There's no let me get you a quote and email it over. There's no let me call you back. There's no let me just answer your questions and hope you call me back. You've got to schedule the appointment on that call right then and there. And that one skill, so many of them are important, but that one skill is the one that's losing most companies in the HVAC, in heating and cooling. You're losing the most money because your people are not asking on every call to schedule an appointment.
And we know from what your system reports out that asking for the business indicator and all the many indicators that you run, I would say that the asking for the business, getting a hit on that, where you say, how about Wednesday at 10, right? Something like that.
Yep.
That is less than 1 out of 5 calls.
Yeah.
Because people they say, I'll call you back. I'll have dispatch call you. Instead of, how about Wednesday at 10? I'll call to confirm.
Right? People will go and buy a lottery ticket a regular basis to try and win that million, that big prize. Right. This is the winning lottery ticket, and people don't believe it. And I can't tell you how many HVAC dealers I'll talk to, and they're like at a 30% close rate or 40%, and they're content. I mean, they can have a successful business at 30 or 40% close rate. And you sit down with them and go, yeah, but if you just did this one thing, you could get as high as 60, 70, 80%. In fact, we have locations at 80%. You have locations, Mike, at 80%. And you can see the data. They're doing it. And so, it's just the simplest thing in the world. And then they'll either not know how to execute it. They'll ask their team to do it, but not know how to follow through with it. Or they'll ask their team to do it. The team will do it, and then they'll complain about it. They don't know how to respond to the complaints, so it's just easier not to fight with your team. I don't know. There's so many reasons, but in the end, they don't do it. And it's the easiest money out there.
Yeah, I mean, we know that one of the things Stochastic's really good at is calculating missed opportunity costs, right? And we know that on average, the lifetime value of a customer, every one of those phone calls, is about $2,800, maybe $3,600. It's not insignificant, right? Now, almost every guy that we look at, there are some exceptions, but almost all of them could get 10% more appointments out of the volume that's already coming into the shop in terms of phone calls, right?
Yep.
10% more sales, no more overhead, no more labor, no more advertising. Now, have you ever broken down, I mean, you've been monitoring CSR performance, behind the scenes for many years. Yep. From the earliest days before you invented the algorithm, which was 5 years before you and I ever crossed paths. But how much does a business owner have to invest in an agent to help them perform at the top levels that pretty much anybody with some skills is capable of achieving? What do they have to really do to make it work?
I want to give you like a $1 amount figure, but I'm going to complicate a little bit more than that. So they have to be committed the same way. I'll get to a dollar amount. I don't want to say I'm not, but
time and money even just time is enough. It doesn't have to be dollars, right? If you're doing it internally, it's just the time.
Well, that's just it. It's not even time. It's a decision that the owner has to make that it's important. For example, you have a dress code. You know that if your people don't come with the shirt, and some people don't, I get that, but I know that there are owners listening to this call that say, you know what, I want my guy in this particular shirt, I want it tucked in. or they have to come to work at a certain time. They cannot show up late to the customer's home. That's a problem. There are certain rules that they may not even have stated, but they know that they have to happen on every situation. If they don't happen, then that person won't have a job. So the problem is that these particular skills, the ask for the appointment on every call, should be higher on the list than whether I show up to work on time or whether or not I have a proper dress code. And there are certain things that you will not tolerate as an owner, but you tolerate them not asking for the business on every call. And so I would say, from a cost standpoint, you have to make the decision to not let that slip, just like you don't let other things slip. You have the capability of doing it. You just haven't made that decision yet. And I would say, when you ask, what's the investment? I say the investment is in the owner making that decision first. Now, because they could spend $10,000 per person per month with me or with any other program, and it is not going to get them the result they want if they will not, as an owner, make that decision. Now, let's just assume they have made that decision. Yes, this is important. I'm listening to what Mike Layton's talking about. This is great. I have the data coming in. I care. I want my people to improve. How much does it cost them at that point? Somewhere between $150 to $250 to do it.
But that is not much at all.
Right.
The service that keeps them accountable, when you see the results and increased sales from the existing call volume, it's crazy not to do it.
Well,
right?
they can listen. They can just listen to a handful of calls before and after and go, oh, I'm clearly making at least one more sale because of this. And in your numbers, the average of 28 to 3,600. That's the average, right? But one sale worth a $7,000 new install. One pays for how many years of the program for one person, and every month they're going to realize that, at least one.
Well, one of the things I think people do, which I want you to touch on, because people don't understand, the technology is changing so much. It always has for all of us. But there may be thinking in the old days where I have to send my CSR away, right?
Right.
And I can't possibly take them away from their work because I only have so many. Or I've got to bring somebody in, and that's expensive. And the only way I can train them is to have people come off the phones and go in the lunchroom or role play or whatever that is. Tell the listeners a little bit about how individual agent training now has evolved to take advantage of not only some of the conversation analytics data, but then some of the mobile technology that you're doing with sort of the Listen Force recreation of the original training company, if you will.
The technology, number one, I can get an alert sent to somebody immediately when there's a missed opportunity, meaning you didn't get any information to follow up with this person, and you didn't schedule an appointment, and there is a need because we heard on the call that the customer said, I need this. And I can send you an alert to your phone, to your desktop that says, do this. Now, that's not even training, right? That's just save the deal. And those locations that are most successful are the ones that are doing that. To be honest, that's my quick. That may be too simple of an answer. So you want me to expand on that?
Well, I would tell you. No. I think you're right on. For instance, when you trigger the missed opportunity notification, which has a link to a recording, right? It has a way to qualify it and say, for instance, we listened to it. It wasn't in my area, which is legitimate. But I will get calls from contractors who negotiate with me about whether the call was a missed opportunity.
Right.
And they'll say, well, we didn't miss it. It went to the answering service. Well, what do you
you don't understand what a missed opportunity is.
You did not answer the phone.
Right.
It couldn't get more of a miss.
Yep. It's a whole paradigm shift where you're saying, look, the reality is the right person on the phone and using the right script, for lack of a better word, knowing what to ask and when to ask it, is going to close significantly more business than the guy that's just answering the phone, answering questions, and hanging up, and certainly more than your answering service. The skills of what you say on the phone matters. One person is better at scheduling an appointment than another, and the goal for any owner should be make sure you got the right people on the phone answering the phone. Otherwise, don't you're blowing it. And even if you get on the phone and the person gives you your answering service got it, or let's say you got it. I'm the owner. I'm going to answer the phone, and I don't schedule an appointment. I missed my opportunity. No matter how long I spoke with them, or no matter how helpful I was, I missed an opportunity.
Well, I think you've got a mix now, particularly as you have migrated to the new format or the new platform, I guess, and migrated all our software or all our call data to it as well. Our listeners do have an ability to get this kind of white paper, this 4-year study that we've done with Conversa, to look at the things that ought to be measured, the things that improvements in have the most dramatic impact on calls booked, right? So for any of our listeners, all you have to do is go to the stochasticmkt.com website, fill out the form, and we'll send you some of the information that we found. The things that ought to be on the board, like you said, you worry about whether their hair's combed and they're wearing the company shirt with their name on it, but you don't have posted right in front of them on the wall, ask for the name, ask for the order, right? Please, thank you, confirm the order, because they can see if they use Conversa's system, and all Stochastic customers, that is available to them all the time. But for you to go on and you can see graphically how your team is doing without even listening to a single call, which is what's so cool about it. Yep. When someone says, oh, we always ask for the name, and we log in and go, less than half the time. How do you know? Because the computer algorithms say you don't. And we listen to 7,000 of your calls, and you only got the name of the person on 2,000.
Yep.
Oh, right? I mean, that's what the tool set that you have developed is just so powerful. It's sort of like and the other thing is you've got some other things in there that just put it right on their desktop. When you have the call log or the callback report, there's no excuse. Every day they log in, they can see here's all the calls for the past 7 days that you didn't book. What did you do to solve that problem, right? Why did you have them there at all?
And the successful locations use that, and so many others let it just sit there and do nothing, and it's really their choice.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of talk, I mean, I know some guys who are really, really good at what they do, but they'll still miss 10 calls a week, okay, 52 weeks a year. Now, in their case, I know that's 520 phone calls. I know their case, their average customer value is $4,500.
Yep. And their close rate's a certain percentage, and there's your number.
Correct. Yeah, so the houses they go to, on average, that have been $2.3 million based on their market. And they're a larger size organization, but let's say you're a tenth of that. Okay, 52. If your average lifetime customer value is $2,800, that's $145 grand. And these are realistic goals. I just think that I want to thank you for kind of setting the stage for what we're going to present to people over the next month. We're going to Jeremiah's team, for everybody who's listening, we're going to give you at least 3 nice webinars of here's the tool set, here's how to use it, to basically book more appointments off the existing calls that you have.
And can I give a sneak peek on that?
Sure.
So there are a couple of things that they can start. As a listener, you can start doing right now, because one of the things you're going to get pushback on is you say, hey, you didn't schedule that appointment. First thing people are going to say is, well, I don't want to come across pushy. I don't want to come across, too aggressive. They really weren't interested, or I'll follow up with them later. I didn't really, we hear all these excuses. So I want to clarify that it's those little skills along the way that are going to make it easy to ask for the appointment later. And here they are. You got to connect with your customer first and foremost. You've got to listen to the customer. You've got to acknowledge the customer, and then you've got to repeat back everything that you've heard. Now, if you think about that, you've got to connect, listen, acknowledge, and restate everything you've heard. Those items right there are easy. They're just polite. They're not selling. There's nothing aggressive about it. It's the last step where you actually ask for the appointment, and so ultimately, it's just be nice to them. And sometimes, especially in this industry, I've found that there are guys that'll be like, I'm not that way, you know. And you got to be. You've got to connect with them. You got to be able to listen. And I think listening is one of those things that that can be the hardest. If you weren't raised that way, it takes some time to learn it. So you got to hire the right people, or you got to do a lot of training to get them to be able to be good listeners. So that's just a sneak peek. We'll get into more of the details of that, but those are the keys to open the door for scheduling every appointment.
Exactly, and I think for people who go to the Stochastic MKT site and fill out the form, and we'll get you the study. But one of the things that's going to blow your socks off when you look at it is how few phone calls that come into contractors does the person taking that call do what Jeremiah just said, restate the need. It's amazing how rare that is for the home service industry. Then the question is, if you just follow that simple, get their name, be polite, ask for the appointment, restate the need all along the way, and you're going to blow your socks off about how few of your people who are listening to this call, the people that you're paying to take your calls, how few of them do that.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Yep. But I just wanted to thank Jeremiah for all we've done in the study over the past 4 years, the custom tweaks that you've made to the algorithm that make it work better for the home service industry. And everybody could just kind of look out for the emails or the invites to the 3 or 4 webinars that we're going to put on that'll show all the listeners how to get more appointments from their existing advertising dollar.
And Mike, I want to thank you. You know,
yeah.
In the end, it's just data. You bring it to life. You make it into something that's valuable, and it's been great working with you to see how you've done that.
Appreciate it. It's been fun, and everybody will look out for a couple more emails as we put this together. And as always, we appreciate your attention, appreciate everything you do for us, and hope we can find a chance to talk in the near future.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Over and out.